Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he foresees Israel taking over what he calls, quote, the management of Gaza's security after the war. The Prime Minister says Israel would have a, quote, overall security responsibility that would last for an indefinite period. Now, he did not elaborate further on that. His comments, though, come as Israel's allies, including the U.S., are warning against a full-scale occupation of Gaza. With more on this is retired Major General Dennis Thompson, a former commander of the multinational force and observers, a peacekeeping group in the Sinai. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsey.
What do you make of these comments from Prime Minister Netanyahu claiming Israel will take control of Gaza's security?
I don't believe that they are tremendously wise. Clearly, they're not going to be accepted by the Arabs in the region, and they're not going to be accepted even by the G7, which has dismissed them at the Foreign Ministers' Conference in Japan. The issue here is that Israel, as an occupying force, would be obliged to respect the Fourth Geneva Convention, which for an army of occupation means you need to take care of things like sanitation, public health standards, feeding the population, and providing health care. And I'm not sure that Israel is in a position to do that or even wants to be in a position to do that.
Let's talk about the international reaction, the international community. Would they even allow this in any capacity? I'm thinking about the U.S. comments yesterday.
Well, no. I mean, at the moment, the U.S. clearly, they still support, and so do most of the G7 nations, support Israel in their self-defense, in their act of self-defense, which targets Hamas and is meant to point out that Hamas is the legitimate target here. But if they don't allow some humanitarian assistance to get in, because that came out as well in the foreign ministers meeting, the G7 meeting, that there needs to be some humanitarian pauses to allow humanitarian assistance to get into the Gaza Strip. If that doesn't happen, Israel and Mr. Netanyahu in particular's narrative is losing the day here, and they're going to lose more and more support from the broader international community, and that's not helpful to Israel's overall cause.
I want to ask you, we'll dive into that a little bit, because we know that Netanyahu expressed openness for pauses, as you mentioned, the fighting, but he made it clear he does not support a ceasefire. I'm going to quote him here, quote, "There will be no ceasefire, general ceasefire in Gaza without the release of our hostages. As far as tactical little pauses, an hour here, an hour there, we've had them before. I suppose we'll check the circumstances in order to enable goods, humanitarian goods, to come in." So what do you think made him open up to the idea of these pauses?
Pressure from the outside, clearly. He would rather just keep hammering away at Hamas and the Gaza Strip than concede anything until he gets his hostages back. And even after he has the hostages back, he'll continue to press the complete destruction of Hamas. So I think that's really what his aim is here. But what we're talking about here is semantics. A ceasefire is meant to be something that lasts for a longer duration and allows some form of dialogue to occur between the parties that are in conflict. A humanitarian pause, as he put it, an hour here, an hour there, is meant to be defined in time and in geographic area. That hasn't happened yet, but there have been the third event, which is a humanitarian corridor, which is essentially what you're showing on your screen right now. Mm-hmm. People evacuating from Gaza City towards the southern part of the Gaza Strip, where Israel is not conducting ground combat, although they're still conducting airstrikes.
Yeah, we've been showing live pictures on our show through the last couple of weeks at the Rafah Gate. We've been focused there. There is another crossing, though, called the Karm Shalom goods crossing. How could that crossing, and here's a map of where that is, how could that crossing be used to facilitate the flow of humanitarian aid?
Right. So when I was in the Sinai, that was the principal goods crossing point, and it has been for decades now, since the siege has been, or not the siege, but the blockade of the Gaza Strip has been in place. The Karm Shalom crossing has facilities to move up to 200 or more trucks per day into the Gaza Strip, and that's what it had done in the past. At the moment, there are about, on average, 33 vehicles a day have gone into the Gaza Strip through the Rafah crossing since the 21st of October of this year. Mm-hmm. At Karm Shalom, which is set up to move commercial goods and can actually move fuel safely from one side to the other, and it's just inside the Israeli border, and you can get to it through a series of fences, and with a little bit of engineering by the Israelis, you could secure a crossing from Egypt into the Karm Shalom facility and then subsequently into the Gaza Strip. So I think there needs to be some innovation and some compromise shown here.
Major General Thompson, we appreciate your insight this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Lindsey.
You as well.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.